This guitar part has never been played live by Metallica. It gets ignored in official Metallica tablatures, and it even disappeared from the original Metallica master tapes. And so it begs the question, what the fuck? Hey everybody, it's Mike from... Hi friends, it's Andriy Vasilenko. I am both excited and frustrated now. Yet another Metallica mystery remains unsolved. I'm talking about the Ghost Riff from Orion interlude. Where the hell did they lose it? As well as Cliff Burton's Riff tapes. Anyway, today I'm gonna discuss with you that Ghost Riff, and in more details than the last time we did it almost 4 years ago.
You think you've heard all Metallica?
I hoped everything would have been clarified by this time, but it has not. But at least since then we've got a bunch of Orion demos and rough mixes and riff tapes that feature some really amazing stuff. I'll show that today if you have not checked out it before. But for some reason, on Master of Puppets reissue, there's no Cliff Burton's original tapes, which he did have, which begs the very question again. There's no more mysterious Metallica track than Orion, the swan song of Cliff Burton. There's so many nuances on it that still come up, despite being probably the most influential metal instrumental that should have been explored far and wide. Well, that would be much easier if the author, Cliff, was alive. There's so much of it, but today we'll focus on one particular detail. That elusive clean guitar riff that did not come up in any tablatures till 2017. I wonder what happened then. Seems like people spread that, which actually terrifies me, because that means that people take my shit as true, while I'm actually often mistaken. So please don't take me as the ultimate trustful source for Metallica. There's only one, the band themselves. That's what we have to do sooner or later on Metallica Geek Podcast, to ask all these questions to Metallica themselves. Why is it lost if it's there? There are about 40 Metallica songs that are available in the form of isolated tracks, and on them you can hear a lot of things that were buried in the mix, from hidden guitar parts to hidden F-bombs. And the problem with these isolated tracks is that they sometimes are such a mess. On the original files ripped from Guitar Hero, bass is called rhythm, and the files named guitar actually don't contain all of it, and the rest of the guitar parts can be found on the file called song, alongside other misfit parts. And these song files, they are treasures for us Metallica geeks. But at the same time, they're often overlooked, and even if they're uploaded on YouTube, you cannot find them, because how do you name them in the first place? You search for, say, Orion guitar only, Orion bass track, but not Orion extra parts, something like that. Anyway, as I said, you can find lots of hidden stuff on those kind of isolated tracks, except the clean guitar from Orion.
And also, the natural harmonics you hear in the beginning of the interlude, also missing. They were probably on the same tape that was lost.
This is the only time something is missing on the isolated Metallica master track that should have had everything. It's not on the guitar track, all the harmonies are there. Nor on the song file, the extras, where it should have been, but instead it goes blank when the interlude comes. Well, you might say that Metallica just forgot to include that on Guitar Hero, but it should have been in the box of tapes anyway. Unless it was kinda last minute recording. Metallica finished composing Orion while they were in the process of recording it. That's why its rough mix is quite different from the final one. Metallica were on deadline and they tried different things to improve the track in a hurry. So it could be true that they recorded the clean riff in the last minute and then kinda was somewhere separate from the main part of the master tracks. But actually, this clean riff existed way before Metallica hit the studio. We can hear it on James's riff tapes, where he actually plays not his own parts, but the harmonies written by Cliff, transposed almost by force from bass on guitar. Initially, Cliff wanted to play all that on bass. James might have done this just to give himself a context, what Cliff was supposed to play there. And same happens on so-called drum room demo of Orion. The composition goes as usual, and when the interlude starts, the guitar starts to play the bass riff. Because there was no Cliff around, and otherwise it would be just emptiness, and Lars would not have a clue where to start. So this ghost clean riff was actually from the very beginning of creation of Orion, but its function was rather navigational. And then in the process of recording, they might have decided, well, it kind of fits in, so let's put it in. And I missed the chance to ask that to Metallica's producer Flemming Rasmussen the time we did a little interview via email. But I believe he would answer something like, man, I don't remember. Just like on several questions. No wonder Flemming Rasmussen could not recall all the details, because that must have been a real hustle in such a short period of time.
The clean guitar riff is a looped, basic version of the bass riff. But with one different note. Instead of E, it plays C sharp. From what we hear how James played it on his riff tape. We hear the S sharp,
C sharp.
plus we have all these slides. So I hear it as follows. You also could play but that's not the way it sounds on James's riff tape. We hear the S sharp,
Fucking C sharp.
stay in the same position. So even though it sounds very simple, it's not that easy to switch the right fingers in the right position.
And it's pretty easy to miss it in the song because of the harmonies and because the bass plays nearly the same. And that's probably why Taps used to not feature it. And Metallica does not play it live because that would require another guitarist, which they cannot afford, unfortunately.
If we play the guitar version of the bass riff on the bass again, we'll get. Does it remind you something? Yes, this is the way Jason Newsted played Orion. But he chose a weird positioning, it's a bit tricky. It'd be easier for me to play this here. First time it did sound a bit off to me, like not the way I learned it. And as James and Kerouac start playing harmonies over it, it sounds like it's supposed to be that way. That's because the note that is different, and it's E. They are in third, and that sounds great because that's consonant.
I needed to clarify that because in that old video I mentioned that the clean guitar riff is similar to Jason's variation of Orion, thinking that the fans would get what I meant. I thought everyone had watched Live San Diego at least. But some apparently didn't, and I got a lot of angry comments like, "You wrong! Cliff played Orion, not Jason! You idiot! Kill yourself, nahu!"
If the guitar repeated the bass completely, it would be like. And we do hear the high E note. In Orion 2, either two guitars were recorded or all on one, but it's a bit tricky. One guitar played the second guitar played, or both at the same time by using the open E.
Записываешь? Уже?
Да.
And I just figured out another way to play that. I was still thinking like a bassist, but you got another 3 strings here.
And even though Orion is a creation of Cliff Burton, we don't hear much of bass on the early Orion's mixes. And here's the reason. Cliff recorded his bass parts in the studio after guitars, and not before like most do. He needed to feel the dynamics, to feel the harmony, the chords and notes, and just to go along with drums and guitar in his ears, because he was the link. He plays some bass in the interlude, but he does the raw, basic, kind of default version. Again, just to give guys some context.
And I completely forgot that James could record the bass too, while Cliff was probably off for some weed. And also the keyboards from the intro in the rough mix. That's probably performed by Cliff, but it does not end up on the final version, or maybe it is drowned by the massive bass distortion. Maybe it's both. Fleming did not remember where he put that actually.
Everything in this composition evolves around the progressions and riffs that Cliff brought up, but it feels like a really collaborative work, because in my opinion it also has one of the best guitar solos of Metallica, one of the best riffs, and one of the best drum parts too. And that's the sign of masterpiece. You cannot tell from where it actually came from. In the case of Orion, it came from bass.